Alright guys, welcome back to VALORANT News. Massive updates today on the roster side, on the new Sentinels invitational $20,000 tournament side, but also on changes to the meta quite significantly at that in VALORANT going forwards. A Judge nerf, a significant Raze nerf, and a potentially significant Cypher buff as well. Massive changes to the meta potentially coming. Lots of reaction we're going to dive into. Very much interested your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I would greatly appreciate it. Firstly, let's do roster stuff. I kind of forgot to mention this yesterday, but actually it makes more sense to do it now because since this, he's been confirmed to be going to his new team. So Redgar, right, we heard Redgar was going to go everywhere, right? This guy was linked to maybe stay on Liquid, then he was linked to be going to Carmine Corp, then he was back to Liquid, then he was back to KC, then he was linked to Giants, and that has been what's confirmed yesterday. So yeah, Giants Gaming Redgar is now official. And yeah, looks good in the new jersey. So yeah, definitely some interesting rosters that are being formed there in EMEA next season. Liquid should be pretty good. Giants are trying to take a step forward with Redgar as their IGL. Of course, yeah, legendary player over the last several years. Didn't really have a phenomenal year last year on Liquid, but maybe Giants is the step forward that he needs to take. There's also this noted from KOI that Kamo and Shadow, so Polish and Swedish player respectively, have reached a verbal agreement with KOI to join their roster next year. So relatively notable players, but you know, still I know a lot of people are looking at this KOI roster thinking it's kind of mid, you know, like compared to some of the other rosters getting formed in that region and around the world. Some of these rosters have raised eyebrows. It's like, is that really the intention to win? Because let's be honest, right? It's the Madrid Masters at the start of the season. I'm sure the Spanish teams will very much like to be in attendance at those events. But only 2 teams from the Americas, 2 teams from EMEA, 2 teams from China, 2 teams from the Pacific actually qualify for that event. Okay, sure, later events, there's 12, 16 teams. But for the first event, Madrid Masters, only 8 teams. Only the top 2 in EMEA qualify. So, you know, it's going to be difficult for KOI to get to that position, I think, given the circumstances. Now, let's talk about these massive changes, really, to what could be the meta going forwards. So, this is a Raze nerf, and quite a significant one. The satchel still works as it did before, but now the time for the charge on the satchel to kind of activate is increased. So, it does 0 damage before the charge has been like activated effectively, which is a very big deal for players as well, but also for equipment and potentially not destroying equipment that it might previously have done. So as we can see here, the blast pack doesn't arm until 1.5 seconds in, and it doesn't deal damage now until it's fully armed. So it operates the same way for Raze if she wants to dive out of a choke point, but while doing that, quite often, you know, you jump out somewhere with a satchel and it would blow up and it would destroy, you know, a Cypher trip or destroy some sort of utility. But that's not the case anymore, because if you use it in the way that most Raze players use it, it now won't do any damage, which is, you know, it's a pretty big nerf to be fair, and also a kind of indirect buff to those other players, to those other characters. Now also the paint shells, primary grenade explosion has gone down somewhat, the secondary grenade explosion gone down somewhat, the minimum damage has gone down, and also for both of them, and also the damage multiplier to utility has gone down. So another pretty sizable nerf. This one is going to be significant, but from Raze's point of view, it doesn't seem anything crazy. It's really the other characters this helps, I think, at times. It's the paint shells, which again, okay, it's relatively minor on the explosion radius, but it's still significant. And also the utility, again, damage goes down. So it's not going to kill Raze, I don't think. I imagine Raze is going to be very viable nonetheless, but it does help probably a lot of the Sentinel agents. And this is when we'll get into Cypher here in a second. This is the big one, the tripwire. So we saw this the other day. That was kind of leaked and was noticed before they've officially announced it. But this is what the official announcement says. The tripwire no longer is destroyed after activating. It now stuns its target after 1.5 seconds. Used to be 3 seconds. So that's a nice little buff to Cypher. And with the Raze kind of satchels no longer destroying it, at least within that 1.5 second window, which is likely going to save a lot of tripwires from Cypher, that makes him even better. I think the analysis here from Riot is that Killjoy is the strongest Sentinel. She's used all the time and is very good. But is she overpowered, or are the other Sentinels simply underpowered? You look at an agent, for example, like Deadlock, and she's basically useless, and there's lots of work to be done to improve her. So maybe, right, think, you know what, Killjoy's fine, let's just make the other Sentinels better, and make Cypher better, and potentially make Deadlock better, and, you know, make some other changes. But of course, the Raze changes also kind of help Killjoy as well. So it's a double-edged sword, but this for Cypher mains is definitely a positive sign. This on the Judge as well. So the mag size on the Judge is now going from 7 down to 5. The jumping spread is going up and the running spread is going up as well. So this is quite a substantial nerf on this part, you would think. The mag size is not a massive deal for the first couple of shots, to be honest. It will still be very strong in close ranges in certain circumstances, but it will be nerfed somewhat, and it won't be quite as abusable as it was previously. The mag size is quite you know, a big one as well, because you're not going to be able to farm multiple players with it again and again and again. Now, Chet says that on the pro level, when players don't really miss, it's probably not going to make a massive big deal because players aren't really going to shot 6 or 7, which is fair enough. But you know, with the other changes, the jumping spread, the running spread, you've got to be a bit more careful with how you use the Judge, and it's probably somewhat less abusable than previously, which is probably a good thing, to be honest, in general. If they want to alter, to some degree, the weapon imbalance that some people see it as right now in the Valorant ecosystem. Now, this is what Chet goes on to say on his patch wish list. So we'll just go through it, right, because Coach of NRG, always kind of interesting to hear his perspective on this. So he wants Ascent gone for Pearl back, or like Icebox back as well. I think lots of teams would be keen for Icebox to return, actually. Ascent Wall B, main increases thickness. So yeah, this is always a thing, and it's always kind of funky, right, where there's just constant walls, you know, wall banging on that site. It doesn't really, I don't think it's really a great meta that is the way to play. So yeah, increasing thickness to prevent that, reduce rate of fire and lower individual pellets damage, and increase spread of each shot with the Judge. So this is kind of his preferred nerf. This is what people will say about the Judge nerf. Is that right? The Judge still does the same thing. It's just if you're jumping, if you're moving, it's slightly less accurate. There's more spread and there's less shots. But in terms of, if I'm standing, you know, just around the corner from a choke point and you come around the corner, you're still getting blasted. And, you know, maybe that's fine. That's the way the gun is designed to be used. But Chet says that maybe reduced rate of fire and either less pellet count or less damage per pellet and increased spread could be the way to go. He wants the body damage of the Sheriff decrease as well. This is what they did in Counter-Strike a while ago, where the Deagle was often used just to spam the body. You really want these weapons that are, I would say at least, that are kind of one-shot, headshot machines, if you are good enough to use them in that way, to be usable for one-shot headshotting, but not much else. And they nerfed it on the Deagle so that you couldn't really spam the body anymore. Okay, it takes 3 shots to spam the body. So if the Sheriff was the same way, especially on like pistol rounds and stuff, where you can't just go around with the Sheriff spamming the body, maybe that's fine. But, you know, that would be Chet's preference, to have the Sheriff as specifically the weapon that you buy to try and get the, you know, quick one-shot headshot off and open up a round, rather than using it for spamming body as maybe is presently done. Make the Phoenix Molotov regenerate on a 40-second cooldown, and then add enemy damage to the Neon Wall, which is also kind of interesting. So yeah, some cool ideas there, I thought. But let's get into this then, the Sentinels invitational they are putting together. And look, let's be honest with Sentinels, they've done a couple of show matches recently, and with not much else going on here in this off-season before the tournaments start to begin in kind of, you know, November time again, with the Red Bull Homegrounds coming up very soon, they're pretty much carrying the off-season, right? $20,000 prize pool for this 4-team invitational. 2 of these teams they've played very recently, right? MXS, Moist Shopify, G2, as they put here, G2 in 10, right? Because they were 10-2 lead and they collapsed. And then Oxygen, right? A team that Dapper is now on. Now, I do wonder what happens with the roster here for Sentinels. Who are they actually going to play with? We hope that Pancada, of course, is well enough again to play when this begins, as I'm sure that it happens on Wednesday. So Pancada probably will return. But, you know, there's going to be some questions, because Pancada was in the team when they lost to MXS, and then Zelsis was in the team where they beat G2. So, you know, there's going to be a bit of controversy if they were to get Pancada back and then lose to G2, for example. So yeah, Zelsis is definitely knocking on the door of a potential starting spot, I would say, on this team. G2 talk about it as well, and they say here to win it all. But Zelsis is not so convinced that these guys are actually any good. And yeah, as we saw here, G2 in 10 for the G2 boys who went down just the other day. Now, Dapper says, I've got the opportunity to do the funniest thing, because absolutely he's now on Oxygen. He was formerly of Sentinels. Would be really entertaining if they were to get the get the victory somehow. But yeah, November the 1st through to November the 3rd, those are the dates where these matches will take place. $20,000 for the winner. And again, it's quite a big deal, right? I mean, if you're Sentinels, you want to make sure you win this tournament because you're meant to be the best team of these teams, certainly in the Americas. And 20k is not no money at all, right? You definitely want to secure the bag there if you can. Now, okay, maybe Sentinels aren't putting up this money. It's coming up by Starforge Systems or whatever, so they could, I guess, secure the bag from either party. But nonetheless, you want to win a situation like this. The players will want to win, and they will be putting pressure on themselves to deliver. And it's good, really, I think, for the teams that they get some sort of competition. Scrimming every day is fine, but when you play real matches, that's when you learn way more about yourself as a team. So yeah, Zekken says if there's any more cash-up rounds, he could maybe throw the tournament. The other thing to mention on the roster side before we close out is on Cloud9. They are going right now, and a lot of the players are already out there in Japan, in Tokyo, for the Red Bull Homegrounds tournament. Now, Cloud9, they have a brand new team. They're going out there as well, but Whippy has issues with his visa. And this is the thing when you sign Russian players. It's an unfortunate reality that maintains to be the case at the moment, where Russian players are not particularly favorable to getting good visas from certain countries. And Curry is going to replace them, right? So Curry was, of course, on Cloud9 before, was not the best for Cloud9 really during his tenure, but nonetheless, he's a well-regarded player by the team. People appreciated Curry when he was there, and generally a player the fans tend to like. So yeah, with Whippy having visa issues for the home ground in Japan, and I'm guessing that's probably due to his citizenship, Curry, the GOAT, will be filling in for him this tournament. So again, pretty big deal, because obviously they wanted Whippy as their ideal man, even though there was lots of questions about whether Whippy should really be the ideal guy to get. But still, they've got Whippy in. That's the man they wanted, given the previous experience. But yeah, if they turn up there with Curry and they do very well, that's going to raise questions. But if they don't do so well, then people will think, well, Whippy ideally should have been there, and they've lost good practice time at a big tournament like this going into the new season. So not ideal. Cool for Curry though, and yeah, wishing all the teams the best when they turn out to that. So very much interested to your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.